Welcome in, everybody. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. So today I figured this video will be about some stuff for Minions of Mirth. As you guys know, I did do a pretty quick, well, I guess it wasn't super quick, but basically a little bit of a detailed, informative about Minions of Mirth and it being, Reborn, because the Reborn team has been able to make a server and bring it online. So today what I wanted to do for all of us is go through some of the classes or I'll go through all the classes really and kind of take what is on the handbook and give you a little bit more of a description of what all the classes do. So we already went into the races and I told you guys about the races. I might do a separate video for that if you guys want. Let me know in the comments if you do. But the Minions of Mirth handbook I'll also link so that you guys can look at it if it's something that you want. It does have some pretty good information. It has a lot of like meta builds for the classes that you want, the 3 classes that you'll want to choose depending on what your play style is. But we're just going to go through the list. We're going to start with the Fellowship of Light because that's normally whenever you first log in, it automatically defaults it to the Fellowship of Light. And then we'll go to Minions of Darkness. The monster templates, these guys don't actually have anything specific that you can like choose. They're basically already set up with a class, sometimes 2. I don't think there's any that actually gives you all 3 classes in a single template, so you can still modify some stuff. But I wanted to go through just the Fellowship of Light, and then we'll go through the Minions of Darkness because there are some things back and forth. And we're basically just going to use the human template here, so sorry if you don't think the human's cool, but we're just going to basically use this to go through the class list, okay? Alright, so there's also a power scale system that is being utilized for the classes. So one is going to be that the class isn't used in meta settings and should be avoided. And then 10 is going to be class defining. It's definitely important to have if you want to use them in a build. But remember that every build is going to be very different and unique, and play what you want to play. But there are a lot of things and a lot of information that is going to be helpful, okay? So Barbarian, we're going to start with the Barbarian. It says the overall power ranking is 4. So it's not going to be great, but it is viable if you wanted to use it. But a lot of people say that Warrior should be used instead, okay? So what it says here is worse defense and damage overall than Warrior. If you're considering playing a Barbarian, it's probably correct to be a Warrior instead. But it does have an ideal build. If you are using the Stone Giant template or an Ogre, it's a very idolized Sodi tank, which Sodis are high-end monsters that are pretty much very difficult to kill solo. But they're pretty much, that's what they're used for. But the build is pretty much not great overall. But the ideal build would be a Barbarian Ranger Assassin. And remember, Assassin is going to be only for the Minions of Darkness. You can't choose one as a Minion of Light unless they are a Fellowship of Light. Wow. I love not being able to talk. So, Barbarian Ranger Assassin, unless they change something, Fellowship of Light cannot be Assassin. So this would definitely only be a Minions of Darkness build, okay? Next, we have Bard. So Bard overall power ranking is 9. So they're going to be very good to have in your build depending on what you're building. I know that you can use them in melee builds as well as spellcasting builds and support builds. So it's pretty much a universal class that you can use, which is really nice. So it says Bards provide several strong generic alliance buffs. Every team wants a Bard, but not more than 1 Bard, since it doesn't provide much more benefit to the character using it than it provides for everyone else. It is highly recommended to play this class on a support character or a dedicated solo character. And it says the ideal builds, if you're going to be a Bard, it would be a Bard Shaman Cleric, and then the additional ones that they have for using them in a build would be Doom Knight Bard Cleric, Warrior Bard Shaman, or a Wizard Bard Tempest. And the next class we have that we're going to be going to is going to be Cleric. So Cleric's overall power ranking is 10, so it is one of the best ones to have in your build. So Cleric is the only strong healing class in the game. No other class enables tanking in-game mobs like Cleric does. For For group content, the best builds are dedicated supports such as Bard, Shaman, Cleric. The ideal build, of course, is it states as Bard, Cleric, Shaman. So I'm not entirely sure if the order of the classes makes a difference, but I do know that your last class that you get, your tertiary class, is going to basically be the one that gets leveled up like at, you know, in third place basically overall. Unless you set your sliders correctly, it's going to be very hard to level up your third class effectively. So you do have it a little bit lower, but of course as you progress in the levels and you get experience, it should pretty much balance out to almost be pretty much on par with each other. All right, so after Cleric we have Druid. So overall power ranking for Druid is also a 10. So Druid has the 2 best damage boosting buffs in the game, Nature Skin and Greater Wolf Form. It also has some versatility with DOTs, which is damage over time. It also has pets and slow debuffs. But the primary reason to play this class is for damage buffs. This class gets such a high rating because boosting damage is one of the best things you can do. And it says the ideal build, of course, is going to be Warrior, Druid, Assassin, if you're on an Ogre. Otherwise, others are typically better otherwise, what it says. Warrior, Druid, Tempest, Warrior, Ranger, Druid, Warrior, Druid, Shaman, or Warrior, Druid, Cleric. All right, so after Druid, we have Monk. Its overall power ranking is 3, and I know why. It's interesting. It's a very strong class. So Monk is a very strong class for leveling, but drops off in the late game. Its Fist advancements are a huge downgrade to the weapon style advancements that other combatant classes get, especially once you have max haste. Furthermore, as far as tanking goes, having high defense is good, but not as important as having high health. If you have 200,000 health and very high defense, it is perfectly feasible that, say, a Sodi will burst you down from full health before a healer can save you. But this is much rarer if you have 300,000 health and slightly less defense. And it says the ideal build is going to be a Warrior Monk for tanking Thugath. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce that. I butcher a lot of names, so I apologize if I don't say it right. But yeah, Warrior Monk for tanking. I mean, if you are in a dedicated party, I'm pretty sure that that's probably not going to be a big deal. It's more than likely going to be a very good idea if you're playing in a party, but solo, probably not the best idea. So now we go to Paladin. So Paladin's overall power ranking is only a 5, which is upsetting to me because I love Paladin. Paladin is one of my favorite classes. So Paladin is similar to Barbarian and Doom Knight in that its raw combat capabilities are weaker than Warrior, but it does provide some utility elsewhere. Though it doesn't get any heals late game, the one it has still provides some free healing in a pinch or in PvP. I don't know if a lot of PvP happens, to be honest, on this server. I don't even know if it's active or if it's just there. We don't have a huge community right now that's able to play online, so hopefully at some point we'll have a large community so we can test that out. It can also be viable in crit builds with its Champion of Light skill, and it says the ideal build for them is going to be Ranger or Paladin, Ranger, Shaman, which I believe that's how I built mine. I could be wrong, but I think that's how I built mine. Then we go to Ranger. Ranger's overall power ranking is 8. The name of this class might suggest that most of its utility is from camping a bow and using archery, but this is not the case. Instead, the class is much more effective as a support for either a melee or caster. Its archery proficiency does enable a new dimension of damage dealing, just not to the extent of being able to rely on it solely. So you can't just stand back and just pew away, which is kind of the unupsetting thing, because I feel like having a physical range damage dealer would be really good, but apparently it's not very viable. It also says, and its Sodi earring is one of the best when paired with a warrior. It may be a lackluster class until very late game though. So play this class with some caution. And it says it's utilized in ideal builds is of course Warrior, Ranger, Druid, Warrior, Ranger, Assassin, Paladin, Ranger, Assassin, Paladin, Ranger, Shaman, Warrior, Ranger, Shaman, and Wizard, Tempest Ranger. So I have not seen a Wizard Tempest Ranger perk in here yet, so that's interesting. It's very, very different the way that they have things set up here. So next we have the Revealer. So the Revealer's overall power ranking is 8, and it says similar to Necromancer's, Revealer was a bit lackluster in vanilla Minions of Mirth and received some changes in Reborn. While with these changes, its primary debuff, Greater Disturbed Minds, is sufficient for supporting wizards. It also gives mana regeneration, which is also very useful for supporting a wizard. Awakening is its in-game weapon and is the best caster weapon in the game. It is mostly interchangeable with Tempest as a caster support. It also provides some melee support, namely in Phantasmic Manifestation and Alliance Combat Flurry. The latter is extremely useful for when teammates don't have Volsh belts, and also nice for getting full haste with a Girdle of the Werecat, which makes it better than a Volsh belt. It says that its ideal builds are going to be the Wizard Revealer Tempest, Wizard Revealer Necromancer, Wizard Bard Revealer, and Wizard Doom Knight Revealer. And then next we have the Shaman. So overall power ranking is a 9. So Shaman is a very strong class and an important one in in-game teams. It gives the best health buff in the game, and it has the best pet in the game. Both are crucial for tanking bosses. It also has access to slow debuffs, which can be helpful in some cases. It has it is very hard to complete a lot of the in-game content without a Shaman, but they are not spectacular in multiples, better in multiples than, say, a Bard, though. So basically, if you have a Bard in your group, you don't need another. If you have a Shaman in the group, if somebody else is playing as, one of the ideal builds, of course, then you could totally snag them. It says the ideal builds for Shaman are going to be Warrior Bard Shaman, Warrior Ranger Shaman, Paladin Ranger Shaman, Warrior Druid Shaman, and Bard Shaman Cleric. So after Shaman, we're going to go to the Tempest. So the Tempest, overall power rank is 9. So the Tempest is a strong jack-of-all-trades support for both meleers and casters. Its melee support comes in the form of boosting melee damage and giving some physical resist, and in some cases debuffs. The debuffs are crucial instead for casting support, as most in-game monsters have resists, which make it nearly impossible to land spells on them without debuffs. Its pet is also very helpful for both meleers and casters, and it says the ideal build for a Tempest would be a Wizard Bard Tempest, a Wizard Tempest Ranger, a Wizard Tempest Revealer, a Warrior Druid Tempest, a Warrior Tempest Assassin. All right. So next is Thief. So overall power rank is 1. This is, I think, the only class that has a 1, at least so far. It literally just states bad class. Its combat utility is essentially strictly inferior to Assassin, and its out of combat utility can be obtained without leveling a character. I recommend not playing this class. I actually have a Thief that I want to do some content with, so we're gonna see how terrible they are. It'll be fun either way, and if it is terrible, I probably won't keep the character, or I'll keep him and just let him retire in Trents, but I don't know. But yeah, apparently Thief is not a good class. I'm still of the firm mind that it doesn't matter what you play as long as you're having a good time, and Thief gets, stealth, which is called camouflage in Minions of Mirth. Then they also get like, I know that they can disarm traps, I believe. I think it's just called disarm. I'm not entirely sure if it's disarm traps or if it's actually like the combat ability disarm. But they can pick pockets, which is kind of interesting. So I'm not entirely sure if there's specific things that only they can get, but they also do have a fairly good-sized epic chain quest line, so I'm not entirely sure if that's something big or not, that's something that needs to be stated. So we're getting to the last two for the Fellowship of Light, guys. So the Warrior overall power ranking is 10. Warrior is the best combatant class for most things. Some others can edge it out. in niche classes like Doom Knight in builds that don't have pets. But when making a melee character, the default assumption is that you're playing warrior. Replacing warrior with another combatant class will typically not ruin your character, but it will typically make it weaker. So there are a lot of builds for this, and it actually tells you to go to the meta build section because warrior is utilized in a lot of builds. But the two that it shows here is the ideal build is going to be warrior bard shaman or warrior druid assassin. And then the last one for here is wizard. So wizard's overall power ranking is 10. It's kind of similar to the warrior. Wizards get a rating of 10 not because of its combat prowess, although you probably won't get a Calder's ring without one, which apparently is, I guess, an item in the game, but because of how much having one accelerates your account. If you train enchanting on a wizard, you'll have access to ESOD weapons, which makes leveling any future character a joke. Enchanting is also useful outside of ESOD weapons, and since you'd wanted to do it anyways to be a more powerful account, you might as well do it on the best class for it. And it says it doesn't hurt to mention that wizard gets tree 100 the fastest of any class on a first character, so it can be a good option for players who want to get to high levels the fastest. And the ideal builds is wizard bard tempest, wizard tempest ranger, wizard bard revealer, wizard tempest revealer, wizard what is that? I think that's supposed to be Rev, wizard revealer, necromancer. So that's all for the Fellowship of Light. Let's jump over to the Minions of Darkness, and we're just going to go through the ones that we didn't go through already, okay? So Assassin is going to be the first one. Overall power ranking is 8. So Assassin is a class that provides damage boosts, generally in the form of criticals. Its main attractive feature are the Grievous Wound skill, passive 0.4 crit mod. I honestly don't know how good that is, if I'm being 100% honest. I'm assuming that it's a passive 40% boost, but I'm not sure. And a slight boost to offense over other melee classes. This makes it a viable support in a very damage-focused melee build. And as I said, whenever we were looking through a lot of the stuff, the ideal build would be Warrior Druid Assassin if you're on an Ogre, Warrior Ranger Assassin, Warrior Tempest Assassin, or Doom Knight Ranger Assassin. So the next one that we need to go to is Doom Knight. So Doom Knight's overall power ranking is only a 6. It's higher than the Paladin, which is upsetting, but hey, it works. So Doom Knight has some unique strengths that are important to play towards. Otherwise, it is just a weaker Paladin or Warrior. Namely, it gets a crit buffing skill in Knight of Chaos, and it has a pet. The latter makes it a sneakily strong class in a build that wouldn't otherwise have a pet. That sounds niche, it is. It's not an all-around great class, but it certainly has its place. Do be warned that it does not have an easily accessible in-game offhand weapon, which can be an unpleasant realization at tree. Oh man, I'm assuming it's try because it's try character, try class. Alright, so next we have the Necromancer. So the Necromancer's overall power ranking is 8. So in vanilla Minions of Mirth, Necromancer was a very weak class in the late game despite being a powerhouse in the early game. With some changes in Reborn, its in-game spells are much more effective as they provide debuffs, are AoE, and stackable. Oh, and its in-game buff gives casting damage. Pretty nice. The ideal build for Necromancers would be a Wizard Revealer Necromancer, which is a glass cannon. Basically, if you're going to play a Wizard Revealer Necromancer, you might want to be in a party. You might want to have a group going for that. And then I think that's everything. Yeah, that's all the classes, guys. We went through all of them. Sorry if this was a little long. I wanted to go a little bit more in depth, and I wanted to make sure you guys, had some information, because just so you guys know, the overall power ranking, I would take everything with a grain of salt. Because as I said, even me, my first character was my Paladin, and I absolutely love the Paladin, and they only gave the Paladin a 5, which a lot of stuff says that it can almost be changed back and forth, like depending on what type of build you're using. They say that normally that Warrior and Paladin are interchangeable as well as Doom Knight. So I don't know if it's just because this is for Reborn or not, or if this is for something else, but it did mention Reborn a lot in here. So hopefully that gave you guys some more insight. I know that it probably wasn't like the most informative, but I wanted to make sure that you guys had some information and some builds. And as I said, I'm going to link the handbook down in the description so that you guys can actually go through and look at it yourselves and see if you guys have any build ideas. So hopefully you guys, you know, learned some stuff or at least had some fun. But I'll see you guys next time. Take care. Bye.